We are here with Matthew Drewry Baker, who
Hello.
has been a part of the Modern Witches Confluence since the beginning, building altars in our physical spaces, building virtual altars, and supporting so much with the organization and inspiration for this event. And I'm super excited to have Matthew here today to chat um, and kind of add to the cauldron that we're stirring together. So thank you for being here, Matthew.
Well, thank you for having me, Casey. I'm so excited to be part of this project.
Yay.
Wonderful. And be part of the Confluence always. Yes.
Absolutely. So I think the first place that we've been starting off these conversation is really to get a sense of where you come from in your connection with magic and spirit. And so I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about when you first sort of realized that you had like a spiritual connection or got curious about magic in some way.
Yes. So I think that it's hard to say an exact time because I think it was just really early childhood. I think there's this period of time when you're understanding the world, perhaps when you're like two or three, that you start to like create linear maps and you realize some things didn't add up. And I remember really early on, like having distinct memories and feelings of like, wait, I perceived this different than everybody else. I don't think that was wrong. And I think I early on like would have, periods of time where I would speak to or like when I was three, my great grandfather died, and I like started having conversations with him like right after he died, and definitely was, I believe, being a young medium and talking to my great grandfather and other spirits early on. And so I think there was just this kind of innate belief that there was magic and that that I had power of my own and that everybody else did too. And that a lot of magic was in nature. And I just never, I mean, there were definitely times where, actually, no, I never lost my belief. I've always just had a really strong belief and understanding, even when I would suppress it or become very closeted with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, definitely was always a real lover of fantasy and Arthurian legends and Greek mythology. Fairy tales have always had like a very strong kind of central, um, figured largely in my life. And I was lucky and blessed to have a mother who was very encouraging of all of my wild imagination and my appreciation and thirst for knowledge in those worlds. Um, as far as being a really practicing witch, I would say it took me, I definitely started in junior high and high school. I would dabble, but I think um, it never really stuck. I don't know if that was a lack of discipline or just, maybe just a lot of other emotional kind of issues and, also coming to terms with my sexuality that was challenging. So I never really formed a really strong anchor in that kind of practice until probably about the time I was in my very early 20s. I became fixated with the tarot and started learning how to read, and really kind of started cultivating a more spiritual practice as far as communing with nature and meditating and kind of learning about some of the things that I would do in my mind and my brain that I started realizing that, oh, that's actually you projecting your consciousness out into the world. And those little superstitions that you have are real ways that you're working with the elements and the spirit worlds. Um, that
Beautiful.
kind of grew.
Yeah, when you were talking about myth and folklore, would
Hmm.
you like encounter the archetype of a witch and feel connected to them? Was that kind of like something you really identified with?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely was always, fascinated by um, the witch and the magical character in pretty much every story that came. And I loved how in most of those stories, it's the witch and the magician or the fairy or Peter Pan, what have you. It's the magical thing that kind of saves humanity from this kind of, dense kind of only physical plane of existence, and helps them, overcome and believe and transform. So I think that was always the thing I fixated on and love to play out in my imaginary games. Uh, Always making like potions and brews, and yeah.
It reminds me so much of, you mentioned the Arthurian Legends.
Yeah,
It reminds
yeah,
me of the Fisher
yeah,
King and
yeah,
how
definitely.
ancient.
Yeah, definitely. I went through a huge Merlin, Morgan Le Fay, phase that I never actually grew out of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And so how would you define a witch?
I would define a witch as a person who, you know, does believe that there is more than meets the eye, that believes that there is a spirit world, that that we all have a spiritual self, and that believes that that they play a role of, communing with the unseen, with the magic in nature, the magic in themselves, and works towards healing, works towards healing through whether that's medicine or artistry or divination, helps to bring people to place where they can transcend and do their own work in this world. So I think it's the walking in between is being a witch.
I love that definition. And I'm curious because our work in the modern witches sphere is feels interesting, and I think that term modern witch kind of throws people off sometimes. But I'm curious, what do you think it means to be a modern witch? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So that's I mean, definitely the mod. I mean, I can speak that the word modern in general, it does not actually describe me very well. I'm kind of an antiquated person. I kind of love the long way around and tradition and objects, and um, I struggle to be in the modern world. It's I don't love technology. I don't, that's just not how I'm wired. But what I come to believe is, this is the timeline I'm in. Um, and I think it's embracing that, being a witch is embracing it in the world that you're in, and embracing the suffering that is there, and the kind of darker realities that need healing. If we're in this timeline that is more modern, whatever that means, it's, not bypassing or ignoring what needs healing, because it doesn't fit in with one's aesthetic or one's, you know, ideal. So I think being a modern witch means embracing that this is where we are in time, and this is the work that has to be done. And trying to heal with that work that's in the modern age.
Yeah, I think it can be so difficult for people who identify as witches to be in this modern landscape.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for some more than others. I think, if you're really a nature loving witch, the modern world has not been so great to the natural world. And there's a part of us that I think all wants to just kind of hole up in a cave, because there's a lot of ugliness and a lot of apathy uh, in this time and place. But there's also at the same time more growing consciousness and um, ways of connecting. So if time's not really linear, we've gone to this time because we needed to get something or create something or make something happen. So I do believe that there's a reason for being so.
Absolutely. We need witches more than
Yeah,
ever, feels like.
yeah, they are the future. Yeah, one of the futures.
Yes, absolutely. How has your personal lineage or history sort of shaped your understanding of witchcraft or magic?
Yeah. So my uh, family is most of my heritage is you know from Ireland, English Isles. So it's very Celtic, very Gaelic, um, and there was a lot on my mother's family. There's a lot of settling families, but settlers that did work with land and agriculture. So there's a great deal of that. I believe that's been passed on. Like I have families that were orchardists for very long times. So there is I think, a great appreciation and reverence for seasonality of the world, of honoring plants and utilizing them and cultivating them and really, you know, seeing the beauty in them and also the need to utilize them and incorporate them into one's day-to-day life. That was something that was very much passed down, as well as like the um, honoring and celebration of holidays and marking the seasons with picnics and wild crafting. Um, the belief in some folk medicine and herbs and superstition has definitely been passed down. So that's something that I do have always kind of just known and have loved, and I continue to practice. Uh, and then there's a lot of things that are still in mystery, and I'm always trying to get to a better understanding of my lineages and practice and what really belongs to me to work with.
For those folks who don't know what you do now in the
Mhm.
realm of like working with nature and tending to nature, do you want to share a little bit about?
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of have had kind of diverse jack of all trades period for a while, which was definitely I was reading tarot, um, publicly and private practice, and also have always been a foraged florist for many years, which is and not really florist. I think it's more just art and sculpture and creating environment. I think might be a better way to say. But I've been really this idea that that a lot of like our a lot of our produce and agriculture has really gotten away from being organic and having its integrity because of agribusiness and pesticides and such. So it's and something I have seen that the flower world and florist world has kind of disregarded. And so there's foraging is this idea that really only working with things that you grow in your garden, things that are like on the side of the freeways or kind of no man's land, overgrown, other yards, people you can create connections with to cut and grow and utilize, or organic farming. So I've been doing events, weddings, dinners, restaurants with that kind of floral work. And then it was really wonderful to be able to do altar work and environment work for the Witches Confluence with that idea of really just because what I really do is I go out and into land and nature, and I have the connection with those plants and try to utilize them in a very respectful way. But there's more history and relationship with it, I think, that I.
Right. Yeah, I love seeing how you interact with the landscape, just especially when you share moments with animals
Mhm,
that you
mhm.
have on your journey. Feels really special. It feels like when you create something, you're also bringing those relationships and like the spirits who have interacted with the plants. And
Yeah, it's storytelling, really. I think what I go out and I forage and have these encounters, and sometimes it's spirits or it's sometimes it's animals, and then I think that gets into the story. And then when I work with the plants, like I recreate that too, and they continue telling that. Um, yeah.
yes, okay. So I just got a flash of your the film you created for us.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And just saw so much of like your storyteller nature come out. And I think that's such a beautiful aspect that you incorporate into your magic and your witchcraft. So I just want to honor that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's was a fun new development that I will say the going virtual kind of helped me uncover and unleash, and that was really fun. Thank you. I'm happy for the opportunity.
So I'm curious about how you would define magic.
So yeah, I would define magic as definitely putting willing one's consciousness out into the world of the belief that I think that every thought and every action has a consequence. I do believe that. So I think that when you have special intention around certain thoughts and certain actions, that there are consequences. And when you utilize, I think, symbolism, the subconscious into it, and weave your own personal history and the history of plants and animals and stones into this and creating this kind of offering, I think that nothing in nature is wasted. So I believe that that goes somewhere and does something, and especially when are aligned with um, wanting to create positive change in the world and create positive change for yourself. I think that that is very uplifted by nature. Nature wants to evolve and progress and heal. So I think that those things are listened to.
Hmm, beautiful. So, for our listeners, those of us
Mhm.
who are tuning in today or wherever you are in the world, whenever you are in the world,
Mhm.
um, I'm wondering if there's a token of advice or some insight you can offer to folks who are maybe seeking something along their spiritual path, but are feeling maybe lost in the moment or stuck in some way.
Absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I think that um, there's kind of two things that always help me when I'm feeling stuck or lost, or and things I continually work with. The first is to be in awe of nature, in awe of everything. I think just trying not to be in such a ego consciousness, and instead of just being like, wow, that's just incredible that my body works this way and does these things, that there's these complete universes in nature that I usually just walk and bypass. I think just trying to stop and smell the flowers is important. And uh, I do think the minute you get out in nature or observe something in your own nature, it is kind of a marvel. And then you can feel and sense that there's magic, that there is just all these different kinds of consciousness and reasons that we are, it's mystery. So getting into the awe of that mystery. I'd also say that it kind of works with that and really hard for me is getting grounded. I'm a person who's just always kind of not really been in my body and has to work really hard to get in my body. And in order, especially to practice, I think magic, and especially working with spirit, that is really helpful. And so I think getting grounded every day as much as you can is something that I am working on currently, and then it's a challenge, but I do feel that it helps. And reminding yourself every day when you start getting like disconnected, or um, that you're like, okay, I have a choice here. I have a choice to be grounded and a choice to ask for strength, and get rooted again. So that's
That's super helpful. And yeah, you kind of segued into my next question, but I was wondering if there is an embodied practice or ritual or anything that you can share with us that might be supportive on someone else's journey.
yeah. So right now, my first thing is like in the morning, like it's so easy to just like grab for your phone or start thinking about all the things you do and not really like check in with how you're feeling. And this idea of stepping into the day, like you have to like step into the day and just like pretend like it's a room you're stepping into, and feel what it looks like and sense what it surrounds you. So
Mhm.
one, the other is I'm a runner, so I like to run in the morning. I live up in San Francisco in Bernal Hill, so I run to the top of the hill pretty much every day. And one of the things I've done, which helps me with awe and groundedness, I go to this one little spot every day. It's like kind of off the trail, and I just sit in the same spot every day and just like look at like what is different today. Like, is different things blooming? Are there bugs? Are there butterflies? Are there birds ahead? Just looking at nature. That's really fun. It's really fun to like see, like, is this a message for me? Which I do believe that, the animals and the plants are messengers too. So I love looking up the symbolism, and I feel like that helps me get in awe and like, oh wow, there's this mystery and it's revealing itself to me, and Mother Nature has things to tell me today. So that's really an exciting part of the day always. And then I do try to sit with myself and kind of try to get rooted, and create a little safe space for myself and try to repair myself. So that's the other part. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's so special to be able to return to a place as like a grounding tactic. I really love that.
Yeah. And just being like, it's just this one place. It's what it, because sometimes you go out to nature and I think it's overwhelming, and which is fine, but sometimes it's just nice to go to this one place that you're like, this is my spot, and I sit here and I am getting very intimate with it. Like, so it's a real relationship.
Yeah, I think intimacy is a really grounding thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we need it so much. I think that this world that we're, uh, so there is so much going on all the time that I think that intimacy is harder to come by because we move so fast. So I think that it's important to kind of cultivate that.
Absolutely. Mm, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course. Sure.
I would love it if you could share how folks can connect with you, learn from you, support you.
Yeah. So the moment I am kind of in a little bit of a transitional phase, but I do have a small kind of divination den and magical emporium in a garden shed that is in Oakland. It's called the Magic Shack, and I sell things for your altar and divination and give readings there, and that is you can find me on Instagram at the Magic Shack, or go to my website, magicshack.com. And then my personal Instagram is Matthew Drewry Baker, which shows a lot more of my other art and ideas and floral work. Um, I'm kind of working on a new plan and a new kind of offering, but that's still in the wings. So to be continued.
So excited to see what blossoms.
Thank you. I am too. Some fun ideas. Always too many ideas.
Yes. There's time. I like to remind
Yes,
myself there's
yes.
time
There's time. Yes,
and
time
right
for
time for
everything.
everything. Yeah.
Precisely.
There we
It's
go.
not a race.
Yes.
Tortoise and the hare. I think I'm a in the um, Eastern astrology. I'm a rabbit. So I think and I'm a fire rabbit. So I think there's a lot of like wanting to bolt and do a million things all at once. And yeah, I do. Like, okay,
Yes.
don't have to. You don't want to burn out.
No. Especially, yeah, it's interesting. We're having this conversation right before the solstice, and I feel like that's very up right now with the sun being at its close to its peak. The burnout
Mm-hmm.
is the potential is high for burnout.
Yeah, yeah. I think that just, especially this opening back up that's happening and needing to get back into life, yeah, I think we're seeing that we don't want to make the same mistakes that we made before, or not mistakes, but, be more all this new consciousness and awareness that I think we've maybe opened up in during this pandemic period, I think is we should wed that consciousness with
Yes,
daily lives. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for you in general.
Likewise.
So I appreciate you, and we'll make sure that folks can find you, put all the links in this video.
All right.
Yeah. Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Oh, this is fun. Thank you. Always good to review what you believe and get tied into it. Yeah.
Absolutely.